everybody. It is Thursday, 1st of September. Pinch, punch, owl, 1st of the month. So I am just going to do one tonight because we've got some friends over on Saturday night. So I'm going to do one tonight and then a couple tomorrow to keep myself ahead of the game, but so that I've got Saturday night free to spend with our friends. And they've got some kids, and there's going to be kids all over the place, and I don't want to risk waking any of them up. So, one tonight, and this is something pretty special, actually, to be perfectly honest. It was a sort of donation and sort of present and sort of they don't drink whiskey, and they were the first person I thought of. So, I have here a bottle of Bailie Nicol Jarvie. And this was donated, I suppose we'll call it, by some good friends of the family, Chris and Nikki Spedding. So if you're watching, Chris and Nikki, thank you very, very much for this, because I don't know if you're aware just how special this is. This isn't ultra rare, but it is now quite difficult to get hold of because it has been discontinued. This is a blended Scotch whisky, obviously, because we're doing a run of blended, that I can remember selling when I was working for the whisky shop. So we're looking at, God, how long ago was that? 10 years ago now? And we were selling it for about, I think it was about 18 quid a bottle. And we used to sell bucket loads of it when we could get it in, because it is one of the best blends I've ever had. It's absolutely fantastic stuff. It was created about the turn of the century. I don't know exactly when the blend was created originally, but we're looking at about 1900-ish, by a company called Nicol Anderson. Now, if you look at the bottle itself, it actually, and it's a very traditional old school label, sort of harking back to how it was when it was originally launched. And it does actually say sole proprietors Nicol Anderson and Co. Limited from Queen's Dock in Leith. Now, it was a company that was then acquired by MacDonald and Muir in 1920 odd, when the Bailie Nicol Jarvie was actually quite a popular selling brand already. Now, Bailie Nicol Jarvie is named after a character in Sir Walter Scott's novel Rob Roy, which I've never read, but I did watch the Liam Neeson film when that came out, and it was alright, pretty good. He's Bailie Nicol Jarvie is a magistrate, and I think his name is Nicol Jarvie, and he is a Bailie, a magistrate, who apparently, and it does actually talk about this on the back label, so I'll read this out for you. Upon entering a Highland inn, the good Bailie, a respected Glasgow magistrate and Rob's cousin, comes under threat from a wild sword-wielding Highlander. Finding his own blade rusted to its scabbard through disuse, he seizes a red hot poker from the hearth, and with great presence of mind, rather than disfigure his opponent, sets fire to his new bonny plaid. Unnecessary bloodshed was thus avoided, yet honour was satisfied. And it's one of these that, because it's an old school label, sort of like turn of the century, there's a lot of kind of funky old English used, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I'm hoping you will be able to pick this up just above there. So we're looking at that line there. Most bottles nowadays say please drink responsibly, but on this one it's please savour B&J judiciously, which I think should be on every label. I think it's a fantastic turn of phrase. So yes, it was known as it says on the top there, B&J, and that was what we used to call it. So like I say, we used to sell bucket loads of this. It died off. It disappeared in about the 1970s, 1980s. It was a popular brand, but it eventually sort of lost popularity, as sort of 70s and 80s was a difficult time for Scotch whisky anyway, and single malts weren't quite coming through, but there was less demand for Scotch generally. But in 1994, MacDonald and Muir, over the years, it eventually became Glenmorangie, and Glenmorangie PLC, the company. And in 1994, they relaunched B&J as this. So this was the kind of the new version, even though they'd used the traditional labelling. Now, Glenmorangie became owned by LVMH, which is Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. Gotta remember, it's Moet, not Moet. So it's Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. And in 2014, it was announced that Bailie Nicol Jarvie would be discontinued, basically because as a blended whisky, and they market it as it has the highest malt content of any blended Scotch whisky. Apparently it's around 60% of this blended whisky is malt whisky. And a large majority of that is Glenmorangie and Glenmoray, as you would expect, because Glenmorangie own Glenmoray as well. They also own Ardbeg, but I don't think there's too much, if any, Ardbeg in the blend. And essentially it was a case of Glenmorangie was so popular that they needed to use all the Glenmorangie stock for that to satisfy demand, and they couldn't afford to spare any to make B&J anymore. So sadly, and it is sad that it's no longer available, it is no more. Now the Whisky Exchange are selling, do have this listed for sale. Master of Malt are saying it's discontinued, they don't have it, but the Whisky Exchange are selling, I don't know how many bottles they've got, but it's priced at 50 quid. And I've seen it for sale on an auction house for 50 quid. Weirdly, if you go to Waitrose, they are listing it for £21.70, but then it won't let you actually buy any. So that's probably just a leftover from a couple of years ago when they were selling it for £21.70. But this is no more. Now, I did read an interview with Dr. Bill Lumsden, who is the master distiller, stroke blender, stroke genius guy that works for Glenmorangie and is one of the few proper whiskey experts in the industry. And he was talking, this was an interview in, I think it was April this year, where he was talking about he would like B&J to come back. You know, it was really highly regarded. They miss it. They are pumping out as much Glenmorangie and Ardbeg as they possibly can. And does that mean that they can make enough? Now, they don't have much of the older stocks left. This is minimally 8-year-old malt whiskey in there, but there will be some older stuff. And they don't have that much of the older stuff left because they've been using it for like limited edition bottles of Glenmorangie because they can sell it for bucket loads because it's Glenmorangie and people will buy it because of the name. So it seems unlikely, but don't say it's never going to come back. So this is, I'm lucky to have this. I was very, very surprised. Vicky, my wife came back from a day out with Nikki and said like, oh, yeah, they've got a bottle for you. I think Chris had got it as a present, and he doesn't drink whiskey, and none of them drink whiskey, and they knew that I was doing this challenge, and I think they turned around to Vicky and said, do you want, you know, does Ben want this bottle? So I didn't know what it was coming up until she'd come home, stuck it on the kitchen counter, and I was like, what the bloody hell is that? She said, well, that was the bottle from Chris and Nikki. I was like, seriously? So I really, really hope this is as good as I remember it. So I am very, very pleased to be able to try this again. I am very honoured. I'm very grateful for Chris and Nikki giving it to me. I hope you're not wanting me to give you 45 quid for this. But if you do want to share a dram of it, I'd be more than happy to. So high malt content, which obviously gives you a much greater potential depth of flavour. The grain whisky is apparently from Ayrshire. Now there are like 20 to 25 malt whiskies in here. It's not just Glenmorangie and Glenmoray. I'm going to knock this down because I did read somewhere that the grain whisky in this is from a grain whisky distillery in Ayrshire. And what I didn't do before when I was writing my notes, it would help if I could spare Ayrshire. When I was writing my notes for this particular dram, I didn't check out and confirm what the distillery was in Ayrshire. So it could well be, is it Girvan? List, oh no, that's not helping, is it? Come on. Jump to grain whisky distilleries in South Ayrshire, Girvan. I was right. So yeah, so it seems to be Girvan grain and then quite a chunk of Glenmorangie and Glenmoray, probably more Glenmoray than Glenmorangie, and then also there's some Highland and some Speyside and apparently a Lowland and possibly, it says an Islay, so it's quite possible that there is a little bit of Ardbeg put in here as well. So, and it is 40%, I'm sure it is, 40%. Aged with on rare old whiskies selected from the best distilleries in the Highlands, Lowlands and Islands of Scotland. All whiskies over 8 years old, carefully matured, judiciously blended, quietly married, producing a silent and delicious whisky. Now, I could be wrong, but pretty much every whisky I've had has been pretty quiet, so I don't quite know what that terminology is to be. Connoisseurs say connoisseur, that word pisses me off. I don't like the term whisky connoisseur. It gets me go. I don't know why, but connoisseur just smacks of smugness and toffee-nosed pricks, to be honest. Connoisseurs say it is pure and mellow, possesses softness and delicacy of flavour which leaves nothing to be desired. Suitable for all climates and humours, apparently. Please observe the Bailey's tradition. Age with honour. There you go. So, now, for something with supposedly the highest malt content of a Scotch blended whisky, there is still a sharpness from grain coming through, and there is a woodiness to it as well, but it's not overpowering and it's not dry, but there is a definite, and this, you know, this was sealed, so we know it's not been lying around for absolutely ages, and it's got like a really low fill level like some of the miniatures that I've had. So this is the whiskey as it should be, but there is a good orange peel to it as well, and a nice soft spiciness. It's kind of Christmassy, but it's not rich fruit Christmas cake. It's like a dry spice of Christmas. So it's almost slightly pine tree, kind of Christmas tree, but very gentle, kind of as though your Christmas tree's in the other room, but you've got all your spices out to get your Christmas cake ready, although you should be doing that months in advance of Christmas to let the fruit soak in and all this lot. But you've also got cloves to do your Christmas ham and all of this lot. All these spices are around the kitchen, so they're all kind of melding and soft and gentle, and then you've got the kind of distant waft of a Christmas tree in the background, as well as, you know, orange peel, dried orange peel as well. It's a cracking nose. It's really, really good. Wonderful stuff. Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, it's so good. It's so soft to start with, and then all of a sudden it starts off and it's almost like nothing. It's just very almost creamy, and then all of a sudden this wave of those spices that were dotted around the kitchen, the cloves and the cinnamon and the nutmeg and a little bit of almost not cardamom, but kind of like a very dry, soft paprika, come wafting in, just like rushes over your tongue. But it's not powerful, it's still gentle, it's still soft. There's a lovely orange cream feel to it. There's an oakiness at the back, right at the finish, that just rounds everything off. But it's not dry, it's not that chewing on the end of a pencil or chewing on a bit of bark. It just finishes it all off. There's a lovely warm, soft finish. It lingers, it's not huge and it's not massively complex, but it's there, and it's an orange cream. It's really weird. It's like Fry's peppermint creams and Fry's, I don't think they do an orange one. There's Fry's chocolate cream and there's Fry's peppermint cream. Do they do an orange one? I've got it in my head that they do. If they don't, it's how I imagine that tastes. And if they do, I haven't had it, but I bet it tastes like that. It's like an orangey fondant, but it's a really soft, sweet orange fondant that's made with oranges rather than crappy, fake orange flavouring. It is an absolute belter of a whiskey. And for the 18 quid that we used to sell it at, and 20 quid at Waitrose, bargain, because that's Waitrose. Christmas, they'll probably put it on deal down to about 17, 18 quid when it was available. Obviously not available anymore. 50 quid is collectability because you can't get it anymore, but I can perfectly understand why people want to try and get hold of it, because it's brilliant. It's easily one of the best blends I've had. Now, in the challenge, I've only had about 5 so far. I don't think I've had many blends up to this point, and I've got another 20 to go. But this one has stuck with me through the years. I can remember this from when I was working at the whiskey shop, that this was consistently brilliant, and it still is. It's a fantastic blended whiskey, and it's such a shame it's not available anymore. It really is. If Glenmorangie could bring it back, they would make a bomb anyway, because all the people that used to drink it would go, brilliant, right, get it, it's absolutely fantastic. And as an introduction, I'll be honest, I think they probably need to, if they relaunch it, they probably need to do something with the label, because this isn't going to attract new drinkers. And it was always an issue that we had at the whisky shop, was persuading people to buy this. When you've got a whole rack of blended whiskies and some of them look really fancy, and you've got the antiquary that I had the other night, where you've got it in its cut glass, but angled bottle. You've got some with really modern labels, and then you tell somebody to get this one, they're like, well, it doesn't look very good. I'm giving it as a present. It looks old and a bit kind of crappy. And you're like, it's not what's around the bottle, it's what's inside it. But this needs an update. This needs, somehow keep the traditionality of it, if that's even a word. Somehow keep the language on it is absolutely fantastic. So keep that. Just try and do something with this front label to try and modernise it to an extent where it would look attractive as a present, but still maintains the kind of integrity of it and its history. And I think it would make a bomb. I really do, because the whiskey itself is stunning. Absolutely stunning. Of course, the risk is they relaunch it, they use a completely different type of recipe, completely different mix of whiskies, and it's nowhere near as good as this. And then this particular one's going to skyrocket because everybody's going to want that one. Anyway, Chris and Nikki, thank you so much for this. It's incredibly generous of you to give it, even if you could still get this and you could buy it for 15 quid, it's still would still be really generous of you to actually give it to me as a kind of, well, we don't drink whiskey, we're not going to touch it, so do you want it? Thank you for that. But the fact that this is something special to me personally, I don't think you guys were aware of not how rare, it's not super rare, but it is actually quite difficult to get hold of. But I will be sharing this with some friends, definitely. People that haven't had it, people that haven't missed it. I will definitely be sharing this. I will probably be saving this for my last weekend bash thing when I do the final drams, and share it with some of my donators, because it's a cracker. It's an absolutely brilliant whiskey. So tomorrow night, I know what I'm going to do. One of them, I can't remember the other one on the list, but the other one is pretty obscure. You probably won't have heard of it, so it's going to be quite difficult to find any information about it. Bells or something, I've no idea. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.